Welcome to Whisper Vault. I'm James. This show is for the experiences people carry quietly, the ones that don't resolve, the ones that don't fit any framework you're comfortable using in public. Tonight's episode came through a listener submission. Couple, suburban, ordinary lives. They asked me not to use their real names, and I've changed a few identifying details at their request. What I haven't changed is the sequence of events, the timeline, the things they saw and heard. The story begins with something small, a sound through a baby monitor, 3 a.m. That's where we start. We bought the monitor because the walls were thick. I need you to understand the house before I tell you anything else. It was built in 1987, renovated poorly around 2003. You could tell by the fixtures, by the particular shade of beige someone had chosen for the hallways. Modern enough on the surface, but the bones were original. Heavy interior doors, thick plaster walls, a structural insularity you don't find in newer construction. When you closed a bedroom door in that house, the rest of it ceased to exist. We thought that was a feature. Our daughter, I'll call her Ellie, was 6 months old. She had just started sleeping through the night. Anyone who has been through that first phase of infancy understands what that means. It's not just sleep. It's the return of yourself. The nursery was set up carefully. North-facing room, small space heater on a low setting, crib centered against the far wall, a rocking chair by the window, baby monitor on the dresser, camera angled toward the crib. It was a good room, felt like a good room. The first night it happened, I woke at 3:07 a.m. The monitor had activated. That soft electronic pop it made when the sound threshold was crossed. I had heard it dozens of times. It usually meant Ellie had rolled over or coughed. I waited for crying. There was not any. What I heard instead was a low, grainy sound, distant, the end of a radio frequency. I assumed interference. We lived in a suburban development, houses close together, monitors notorious for bleeding into each other. I was almost back to sleep when I heard it clearly. A voice, not distorted, not glitching, close to the microphone. It's cold. I was out of bed before I had consciously decided to move. The nursery door was slightly ajar, the way we always left it. Ellie was asleep on her back, one arm bent near her cheek. The space heater was running. The room was warm, warmer than the hallway. I checked the window, locked, the closet, empty. I stood there for about 4 minutes, listening, watching the crib. Nothing moved. In the morning, I pulled up the monitor's sound log. I was looking for evidence of a second signal. Cross-frequency interference usually shows as static bursts, overlapping audio, a doubled texture when 2 transmitters share a frequency. There was none of that. Clean activation at 3:07. A single sound event. No overlapping signal. No static before it. No static after it. I did not tell my wife that morning. I told myself I was protecting her sleep, that the rational explanation, a neighboring monitor, a glitch, a one-time compression fluke, was almost certainly correct. I believed that for approximately one more night. The second night, 3:02 a.m. The same electronic click, the same silence that followed, and then, through the monitor speaker, clear enough that my wife sat up before I did. "Let me in." We both heard it. I know because neither of us moved for a moment. We just looked at each other in the dark. Her face caught the faint light from the window. She did not look frightened. She looked like someone waiting for the correct explanation to arrive. It did not arrive. She said she was not afraid, said it was easier to sleep closer to Ellie. But she started bringing her pillow in before we had finished brushing our teeth. That is how it began. Not with a decision, with a habit that assembled itself quietly, the way subconscious responses do. I lay awake in our bedroom until after 5. The next day I called the monitor manufacturer, described interference, cross-frequency bleed, encryption issues. The technician was helpful. Factory reset, firmware update, channel locking, binding the transmitter and receiver to a fixed encrypted frequency no other device could access. It's rare, he said, but it happens. We asked our neighbors. The couple to the left had no children, no monitor of any kind. The family to the right used a different brand entirely. Digital only. No shared frequency range. There was no overlapping monitor. That night, nothing happened. The night after that, something worse did. At 2:59 in the morning, the monitor activated. No voice this time. Just the sound of movement. Slow, deliberate, the kind of sound a person makes when they are trying not to make a sound. A careful shifting of weight. My wife was in the nursery. She had made a habit of it, though we had not said so directly. I lay in our bedroom and listened through the monitor, and I did not move. It lasted about 15 seconds. Then it stopped. 3:20, she shook me awake. She was standing at the side of the bed in the dark. Not panicked. She is not a person who panics. But something was controlled in how she was holding herself. The kind of controlled that is managing something. She sat on the edge of the bed and told me what she had seen. She had been half asleep in the rocking chair when something changed in the room. Not a sound. Not a movement she could immediately identify. A change in the quality of the air. Or the light. She opened her eyes and the room was as it always was. The nightlight, the crib, Ellie sleeping on her back. And near the bookshelf in the far corner, a shape. She was careful about how she described it. She did not say shadow figure. She did not say presence. She said a darker area against the wall. Roughly vertical, taller than the crib. Not defined at the edges. She told herself it was shadow from a passing car. Headlights through the curtain at an angle. But no car came. Our street ended in a cul-de-sac 2 houses down. No through traffic at 3 in the morning. She said the shape felt aware. That was the word she used. Aware. Like it knew the crib was there. We reviewed the camera footage the next morning. I'm careful about this part. I have thought about it often enough that I do not want the memory to become something it was not. The footage was infrared, standard night vision, grayscale, flat gray tones, slight bloom around bright objects. The crib centered in frame, rocking chair near the window, bookshelf at the right edge of the shot. The footage at 2:59 was unremarkable for the first several seconds. The room was still, Ellie sleeping, my wife in the rocking chair, slight movement as she shifted. Then, near the bookshelf, the image changed. A vertical strip of the frame, roughly 2 feet wide, running floor to ceiling, became briefly and clearly different from the surrounding pixels. Compressed, irregular. And then it moved. Not along the wall, across the floor, toward the crib. 6 feet of floor space in about 4 seconds. The timestamp skipped. 2:59:17 to 2:59:21. For seconds gone. Footage resumed. The corner was empty. The bookshelf undisturbed. Ellie still asleep. I sent the file to a friend. I'll call him Marcus. He had worked in IT security for 15 years. Digital forensics. Not a credulous person. I called him specifically because I trusted him not to agree with me if I was wrong. He called back that evening. Said it could be compression artifact. Infrared sensors sometimes produce vertical banding near temperature shifts. He asked whether the space heater cycling on could have caused localized infrared bloom. The timestamp glitch was consistent with a network drop. He said this calmly and professionally. Then he asked me to send the file again. He wanted to look at it on a larger screen. The next morning he sent a message. Can we talk? He had watched it 6 times. Run it through 2 analysis tools. He said the pixelation pattern was inconsistent with known compression artifacts. The banding was too localized. The edges too defined. Network glitches do not move. They do not track across a frame with that kind of consistency. He said quietly, I do not know what that is. That was the last time Marcus watched the footage. We sent him one more clip 3 weeks later. He did not respond. We have seen him twice since. He is polite, normal. Neither of us brings it up. The following week, Ellie stopped sleeping through the night. She began waking at 2:58 in the morning. Not crying. That is the part one keep returning to. If she had been frightened, screaming, reaching out, that would have been one kind of thing. Terrible but legible. That is not what happened. She would wake calmly, pull herself up in the crib, both hands on the rail, and look toward the corner. The same corner, every time. And then her eyes would track something, slowly, left to right, the way you track a person crossing a room. We tested the heater for carbon monoxide, had an inspector check the nursery wiring, tested for mold, air quality, called Ellie's pediatrician, who told us infant sleep regression was completely normal around 6 to 8 months. We did not tell the pediatrician what we had seen. Around this time, something else shifted. One morning, I checked the thermostat history. It logged overnight temperature by room. The nursery had dropped 4 degrees between 2:50 and 3:05 in the morning on 3 separate nights. Not gradually, quickly, then returned to baseline before the heater logged a compensating cycle. I checked the heater itself. No fault codes. No timer set. I did not mention it to my wife for 2 days. When I did, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said she had noticed the room felt different on those mornings, colder than it should have been. We did not discuss it further. But after that, I started checking the thermostat every morning. My wife stopped going into the nursery alone after dark. She was matter-of-fact about it. She just reorganized her habits so she was never in that room alone at night. One evening she came into the kitchen and said, "There is whispering in the hallway." Not through the monitor, through the walls. I went and stood in the hallway, listened. The heat had just kicked off and the house was settling into silence. I heard nothing. She said it had stopped when I came down the hall. We unplugged the monitor, removed the camera, put both components in a box in the garage. I felt better the day I did it. I was wrong to. The night that removed whatever rational framework I was still holding on to happened about 3 weeks later. No electronics, no monitor, no camera, just the house and the hallway and the closed door of the nursery. We both woke at 3:03 in the morning. At the same time, from a dead sleep, no sound we could point to, no alarm, no ejecrain. I looked at my phone, 3:03. I looked at my wife. She was already awake, looking at the ceiling. And then, from the other end of the hallway, through a closed door, through those walls, it's cold. The same words from the first night. The same quiet register. I stood outside the nursery door for almost a full minute. I want to be honest about why. It was not paralysis. Fear responds to what is present. Dread responds to what is waiting. This was dread. The understanding that whatever was on the other side of that door was going to change something I could not change back. I opened the door. The air was normal, warm, the night light on the baseboard. The room smelled the way it always smelled. Baby lotion, laundered cotton. Ellie was standing in her crib, facing the corner, whispering something, too soft to resolve into words, just the shape of sound. And she was smiling, a small smile, focused, as if something had just said something amusing, directed at something just above her eye level. In the corner, where nothing was. I picked her up. She came into my arms without resistance and laid her head on my shoulder. Within minutes she was asleep. I sat in the rocking chair until it was light outside. Nothing else happened that night. We moved her out of that room. Not out of the house. I know that is the decision most people hearing this would question. I do not have a fully satisfying answer. Finance. Inertia. The psychological weight of a home you have made your own. And something harder to explain. An absence of escalation. Whatever was in that room had not hurt her. She had never been frightened during those nighttime wakings. She had smiled. I do not know what to do with that. I'm not sure I want to. We moved Ellie across the hall at 14 months, repainted the nursery, put a desk in it, called it a home office we barely used. She does not remember any of it. We asked her once, obliquely, when she was around 3, showed her the old nursery, asked if she remembered sleeping there. She looked around with the particular expression of a toddler asked a question they consider slightly boring. "That's the office," she said, and walked out. Ellie is 5 now. She is fine, more than fine. One of those children who arrives in the world with a specific self already assembled. Confident, curious, inclined toward elaborate games involving stuffed animals and rules only she understands. She does not go into the old nursery often, not with any fear. It just does not interest her. The way some rooms in a house do not interest children. The way certain doors stay closed without anyone deciding to close them. We still hear it, not every night, just enough to remind us. On the nights when the house goes quiet and the heat kicks off and that particular silence spreads down the hallway. Both of us, at the same time. We do not talk about it anymore. There is nothing useful left to say. The walls in that house are very thick, and something inside them still wants in. If you are listening in the dark tonight, keep the lights off a little longer. This has been Whisper Vault. I'm James. Until next time.
feel it, that quiet dread. The walls can hear